Getting close. Getting close.
Woo! Woo! So
Are we standing or sitting?
stand for a minute.
Hold on, huh? Oh, yeah, okay.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to go right along.
In order, yeah? In order, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome.
That's for Miklos. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a tough act to follow. Mark Levin is not easy to come after, but with this distinguished panel, I think you will see why the fight for freedom around the world is a winning cause. Because the conservative movement doesn't exist here simply amongst us and within our shores. It's a fight globally, not only against socialism, but for freedom, for hope, for opportunity, and for the prosperity that comes from that opportunity. And so today I'm delighted to welcome some of the folks from around the planet who have in their individual nations hosted CPACs. And this, I should tell you, is in no particular order because I think Jay and our Japanese friends have the right to claim the premier one. But we're also delighted to welcome Andrew Cooper from Australia, Daniel Cho from Korea, a very special guest, Eduardo Bolsonaro from my native Brazil, Jay Aiba, who, as I said, hosted the first international CPAC in Japan, and the host of another CPAC you may be aware of, Matt Schlapp. So I want to ask our international guests and friends this simple question. What inspired you to organize, to go to all the time and trouble to create a CPAC within your home countries? And I think we can just start with Andrew Cooper and go right down the line.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Look, the problems we have
Wait
in
a minute,
Australia...
where are you from?
G'day, mate. G'day, mates. The problems we have are very similar to the problems that perhaps Trump has taken on. You have the quiet voters here in America, right? We have the quiet voters and the quiet Australians that stand up at the ballot box and did so, thankfully, in May last year when the Conservatives were surprisingly returned. But what I see with CPAC is I see a platform in which those quiet voters can be turned into noisy voters. Those that believe in capitalism and free speech, those that love liberty shouldn't be quiet. But the suffocating political correctness and the authoritarians in Australia suppress the liberty-loving voice, but no longer. When we hosted CPAC, the left attacked us on the floor of Parliament. The bureaucrats threatened me with jail because I wouldn't give up communications with you, Matt. You know this. It came from everywhere. And we're still getting attacked at the moment. But that's because they're scared of CPAC. They're scared of this. They're scared of the voice and the platform that this will deliver.
And real quickly, before we move on, when you were attacked on the floor of Parliament, it actually enhanced your event, increased your attendance, and made it a much brighter star in the galaxy there.
It was so good that the senator that attacked her, we made an award in her name, in her honour. And we gave it to her as the greatest marketer of CPAC ever. So she was very happy.
Jay Aiba, back when there were not international CPACs, you had the vision to not only create the Japanese Conservative Union, but to, along with that, organize a CPAC there. What inspired you?
はい、それはもう今アメリカにとってもそしてアジア全体の自由主義社会にとっても大きな敵である中国の覇権主義、全体主義、独裁主義に対してアジアがそしてアメリカが力を合わせて戦う必要があると思ったからです。
So I had a sense of crisis that against the big totalitarian regime and tyrannism and so the communism from China, so the threat is rising. So I had an emergency and sense of emergency that U.S. and Japan, all the Asian countries have to work together and to fight against it.
Yeah.
Daniel Cho, you had some very interesting times in Korea this year, and I will let both you and Matt speak to the aftermath of the Korea CPAC. But tell us about the genesis of your experience in Korea.
Well, right now in Korea, we have freedom at stake. And I don't mean this lightly. A conservative president was impeached a couple of years ago, and she's jailed now. And the leftist government, very brutal leftist government, has taken over the country. And for the last 3 years since, the country is spiraling down. It's losing freedom. A lot of journalists, a lot of conservative activists are being jailed. And in every aspect of life, freedom of religion to freedom of assembly is being attacked. So we are in a very dire situation. That's why we came to CPAC to learn. And last year, we had our first K-CPAC, and conservatives are coming together now to fight against socialism.
Eduardo Bolsonaro, eu sou brasileiro, sim?
I know that.
Quit showing off.
But in Brazil, your father, who is the president, defeated the socialists. And you, as a member of Congress, have been a leader in the fight to continue the policies that he's now putting in place to reverse the socialist trend that had run our country into the ground there. What inspired you to create CPAC there? Tell us about your very first one, which was a spectacular success, and tell us about your plans for the future.
First, we have to say thank you very much, Matt Schlapp. What you are doing is just amazing. Like, you're the guy in the world when you talk about conservative events, and you are bringing a lot of hope to Brazil. Thank you very much. And not only for Brazil, as you see here, Australia, Japan, Korea. For us in Brazil, it's very clear what is the way that the socialism brings a country. We have Venezuela as a neighbor. And just to give you one example, I don't know if here you are against the gun control, I don't know, but I'm 200% against gun control. And I would love to have a Second Amendment in country, but one day we will be there. But for example, in Venezuela, they have a strong gun control since 2012. And nowadays, how they can do to fight back against a narco dictatorship as they have with Nicolás Maduro. And in Brazil, we also have a strong gun control law since 2003. After that, you see the number of the murders going up. But after the first year of Jair Bolsonaro, now with new regulations, it's easier. Now the Brazilians can buy a gun, at least to keep it at home. And what we look at last year, the number of the murders going down 20%. So don't believe in someone that wants to take your guns off. Never, even 1 inch. Never let them, oh, it's just a registration. No. They're going to do step by step, very slow. But in the end of the day, you know how the things are going. And ending it, Charlie, thank you about the opportunity. For me, it's even a personal thing. First reason, it was because of freedom. That's why we turned ourselves conservative politicians. But after my father got stabbed at during the elections of 2018, after he got stabbed at by a former member of the Socialist and Liberty Party, this now is personally. So thank you very much.
In case you missed it, there seems to be a common thread because our Korean friends said that their conservative president there had been impeached. Eduardo's father is now threatened with impeachment. And I think they tried it here in the U.S. as well.
It's all the same. It's all the same.
And to make it clear, he put his life on the line, and they tried to assassinate him.
It would be much more comfortable now, be here in the US for vacations. We are having Carnival in Brazil. Why not go around, ski a little bit? He would receive a nice retirement. But this is not all about us. It's about people, it's about the world. It's not that if you think only in yourself, come on, what kind of people you are, you know? Here you have a great history, you have the founding fathers, and for sure, not that I'm comparing myself to founding fathers, but we think be remembered, after we die, be remembered as someone that fighted for something. As Churchill say, if you have enemies, congratulations. It means that you made something in your life. That's right.
Mr. Chairman, you have been at each one of these international CPACs and have been a star at every one. I've had the opportunity to witness your on-stage presence at a couple. I was privileged to be both in Australia and in Brazil. But as you've traveled around to the various parts of the world, what have been your impressions of these international CPACs?
Well, first of all, I think these are the modern freedom fighters. That's my view. As Americans, we take this hostile socialist threat very seriously, and we tend to think of this as an American problem. And what I learned is everybody's facing this problem around the globe. There are freedom-loving people in capitals all over the world. And when I went to Japan for the first time, Chairman Aiba, I saw a lot of Japanese women wearing red hats. And as I got closer to them, I thought, well, that's interesting. It looks like a Trump hat. And I was kind of saying to myself, I was jet-lagged. I had to remind myself, yes, I'm in Japan. And their hat said, "Make America Great Again."
Yeah.
Here they are, some right there. Come on. And with an interpreter's help, thank you, I asked these women why in Japan you would be wearing a MAGA hat. And several of the women said that had the similar answer, which is, I love America because in America you have a president who understands the threat we face in China.
Yeah.
They understood. And when I went to Australia, once again, as a typical American, right? I go to Australia, I think everything that's happening in America is American. And I go to Australia, and what happens? Not only does the parliament try to prevent us from coming to ban our speech, we run into hundreds of Antifa activists on the streets of Sydney. Yeah. My friends, Antifa is not an abomination and a cancer in our democracy.
Yeah.
It's going global.
It's going global. They're after us. One thing I would say to you, though, in America, with your problems, you have friends in Australia. You have friends in other countries. And I know America feels like you're under attack all the time, but you're not. You're still the leaders of the free world. That's a great thing.
When we, I'll finish up here, sorry.
I want to ask you about the
Okay, good. Let me just say quickly, in your home country of Brazil, as Mercy was saying with you last night, Eduardo, you know, we have different languages, interpreters, and everything else. All it took was someone in English saying fake news for everyone in Brazil to stand up and cheer, right?
We have a lot of fake news.
It's all the same. And you have a problem when you don't have enough news outlets, right? Yeah. And I remember one chant which just kind of took me back in English. Men are men, women are women. The common sense of the people of Brazil was very refreshing. Men are men, women are women.
It's crazy, it's crazy. We are not doing that good in education in Brazil, but what the socialists what they were doing is like discussing about a third bathroom at school, gender ideology, and man, come on, what is that? Like, people want real education and real less intervention from the state into the private sector. Free market talks a lot about Brazil. That's why last year we also approved the pension reform. So Brazil now we are growing up again, and thanks God, this year we are starting to discuss a tax reform. So we are on the way, not socialism anymore. Now we are looking forward for a free market.
Before we get back to our international friends, Matt, though, I wanted to ask you about something that was very, very moving to all of us here in the States. While you were in Korea, some friends from Hong Kong said, "Come see us." That was at a time when they were fighting against the oppressive communist regime in China in ways that the world had not seen previously. Tell us what happened there, and tell us how great it was for you to be a small part of that.
Well, very specifically, we invited one of the protest leaders, Andy Chan. Jay and I invited him to your CPAC, JCPAC. And as he was boarding his plane in Hong Kong, the authorities arrested him for having the audacity to want to give a single speech at a CPAC. And he feared for his life, and his fiance was with us, and it's frightening for these young people who are ensnared in this battle against communism and socialism. Then they asked us to go onto the streets of Hong Kong as really the first Westerners to join the protesters, to stand with them in solidarity. And as we were at the Korea CPAC, we met actually in a bar. Some good things can happen in a bar. And it was mostly because I was with you, Andrew, but that's a different story. But we were asking, we said, Dan Schneider and I had decided to take the risk and to stand with the protesters. Of course, had to call Mercy first and ask for permission. And then we asked Andrew if he was game. You gave a rather quick answer.
Quick one.
And then we said we got to talk to Jay, because what statement would it make? You know, we're not government officials, but what statement would it make if representatives of leading democracies stood together, as different as we all are and our countries all are? What if we stood together with the protesters? Jay didn't take a second to answer. He was in, and we took our team and we boarded our planes, and I think we helped make those protesters understand how much all of us stand with them.
Can I just tell a quick story about that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
You guys are so lucky. Honestly, you're so lucky to have Matt Schlapp and Dan Schneider, and it was remarkable. We were at the Hong Kong police are facing the protesters. It's pouring rain, and there's Matt and Dan soaked, but they're there, and the Hong Kong people are getting so much confidence seeing them right at the coalface there. It was a very proud moment for me to see you guys and see Jay and the others that we're all there, taking a stand with them, and we'll help them as best we can. But that is the trench warfare in the China versus the free world happening right there in Hong Kong right now.
And Charlie,
these guys are in the trenches.
You know this, but to put a serious note on this, it's happened again. The last night in Hong Kong, we were having dinner with Jimmy Lai at his house.
Yeah.
His house was firebombed by the communists. No one was hurt. Jimmy is a brave, successful businessman, putting it all on the line. And Jimmy was going to fly here to speak to us, and he was arrested.
And you know, Matt, you used a word that I think is really important, and that is solidarity. The solidarity movement of the early 1980s helped to crush the communist regime in the Soviet Union. And I think the solidarity movement of freedom-loving peoples around the world right now is going to crush socialism internationally. And so the solidarity that we have, that's worth applauding, that we have with our international friends is so important. And it's important, in my judgment, for us to recognize that so many of them have an even tougher fight than we do because of the things that you've just mentioned. We don't yet have to worry about those things. But I wanted to ask each of the folks from our friends overseas to tell us what you see as being the biggest challenge in your country right now and what your friends here in the U.S. might be able to do to help. We can start with you, Eduardo, because I know that you have a special situation in Brazil, having taken over the government there and seeing the socialist left push back as hard as they can while you continue to move forward.
I think the biggest challenge that we have there is because it's the first time that a country we elected a conservative president, but we don't have a mainstream media, conservative one. We don't have conservative universities. So I think we have to organize and build the whole movement. I dream to have in Brazil something like first CPAC. It was a dream that we realized last year, and I hope we keep doing that every year. But bring think tanks like Heritage Foundation. I knew here in Virginia the example of CBN. So we have to build the rest in Brazil, because still nowadays, even after elect the president, even with me as the most voted ever congressman in Brazil, it shows a lot about our movement. We have all the ingredients. We have only to organize and to keep going to build the structures. So imagine how difficult is it for you here when you talk about Donald Trump, how it's very difficult when CNN start to do fake medias against Donald Trump. Now imagine in Brazil that we don't have even a Fox News. This is very hard. So we have to keep the freedom to speech, the freedom on the internet, and build the whole structure of a conservative movement. That's why I'm very thankful for you, Matt Schlapp, again, to have CPAC last year in Brazil.
And another one yet to come this year, Eduardo. Daniel Cho, how about the situation in Korea?
The biggest threat that we face, of course, is socialism. And it's not just coming from North Korea, but it's China. I told you about the impeachment of the conservative president, and we have evidence, a bounty of evidence, that the Chinese have influenced the rallies, even the rallies, also the internet trolls, the cyber warfare, the psychological.
You mean actual collusion?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely, yes. So we have that influence, and we have to fight for that. Another challenge that we have is the conservatives are divided among ourselves, but that is going to be fixed because we now have CPAC in Korea. And we're going to have it every year like you do. And we're going to bring all the conservatives together. And it's not just the event itself. I have to say that it's everything that CPAC represents. It's the movement, conservative movement that you have, your organizations like the Young Americans for Freedom, ISI. Because I say this because I am personally a member of a student organization, the first of such kind, a conservative one in Korea. And we are learning so much from ISI and Young Americans for Freedom, and of course the Turning Point. You really are our leader in the freedom world. And when you say that America is a shining city on a hill, or America is exceptional, you are right. So believe it, and we are going to follow.
Chairman Jay Aiba, how's the situation in Japan right now?
日本で大事な問題は、一つは経済、一つは安全保障です。
The biggest issues that Japan is facing is first one, economy, and second thing is national security.
まさに今回の CPAC のテーマそのもので、日本に大きな社会主義的な勢いが根付きつつあります。
And this is exactly same to the theme of this CPAC. And in Japan, the socialism is digging into the root in our society.
大きな政府になるような増税がどんどんなされています。
So to attain the bigger government, the tax has been hiked. It's been increasing.
今こそ我々はトランプ大統領が実践したようなトランプ減税を通じて本当に経済を活性化させなければいけない。これがまず第一の問題です。
So as President Trump has done, we have to do tax cut, like a Trump tax cut. We have to apply that and try to stimulate the economic activities more.
そしてもう一つは安全保障です。
And second one is, thank you. And second one is a national security.
あなた方、保守の皆様方は私たちに大きなインスピレーションを与えてくれています。
You conservative friends, you are inspiring us very greatly.
それは自由のためには戦わなければいけないという精神です。
For the liberty, to gain the liberty, we have to fight against it, fight for it.
今、日本はアメリカとともに中国に対抗すべく大きな防衛力をしっかり備えなければいけない時です。憲法の改正を含めてここが今の日本の大きな正念場になっています。
So now is the time that Japan really has to boost up and strengthen the defense force to be allied to the Americans, to the United States of America, to counter, to attack, to defend ourselves against the Chinese Communist Party in China. And now it's time for us to amend the constitution.
Yeah.
Andrew Cooper.
Well, I mean, the problem's in Australia. If the sharks and the crocodiles don't get you, the bushfires will, right? So it's pretty... No, look, we live in a wonderful country, right? It's a fantastic country. The challenges we have, I think, are probably similar challenges to you in that the Chinese threat's very real. They're trying to pick off little islands in the Asia-Pacific region. Australia's the biggest donor in the Asia-Pacific region, aid donor to small island nations. The Chinese are coming in with bigger checks, giving them infrastructure loans that they build airports with, and they have no hope of paying those loans back. So what happens when they can't pay those loans back? Who lands on those airstrips in the future? That's a real issue, and they're influencing, they're sort of on the universities now, and there's an influence there. But the number one thing for me, and it goes to what I love about what CPAC does here, is our education system has been taken over by the left. It's terrible. Do you get that here?
Oh, yeah.
You know, the universities are dominated by left-wing philosophers, and the school system is rife with teachers that barely know their material, but they know how things feel, right? And they teach our kids. They teach our kids to look to government for their solutions, and I think that's long-term one of our biggest problems, and we need to fix that. We need to fight for that, right? We all need to fight for that.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that seems to be a common thread in all
Charlie, these are all chairmen. You have to be specific. Okay?
Chairman Schlapp.
Okay, here you go.
The one common theme that seems to run through all the comments is that in the fight against socialism, in addition to the loss of freedom, goes tax increases. We see that here in the U.S. as well. What are the similarities that you see between the fight that our friends have internationally and the ones that we're experiencing right here against so-called democratic socialism, which really is plain old flat out socialism?
Yeah, well, that's right. I'll just say, Charlie, or Mr. Vice Chairman, let's get formal. I think we screw up a little bit in our thinking of socialism. Yes, it's big government, it's lots of taxes, it's a new carbon tax, which would be an abomination. It's a new wealth tax, which basically means you can't have a savings account anymore because they'd rather just take that money and redistribute it. Yes, the economics of socialism, the math is awfully fuzzy. It doesn't add up. It's never worked anywhere. It's never innovated anything. We know this, Charlie. But it does something else. It's a parallel track. It destroys the dignity of the individual. It destroys the individual of their due process, of their rights. Because you don't matter, the collective matters. You are a victim to what they say would help the bigger community. Sounds almost kind of right, except it's diabolically wrong. Because in America, and I think all freedom-loving people get this, the government doesn't give us our rights. God gives us our rights.
Yes.
It's old-fashioned, I know. It's, it's like Stone Age stuff. But the further we get away from it, the more people are sad, depressed, poor, sick, and everything else that goes along with it.
Now, each one of you is going to have a CPAC 2020, correct? Tell us just very, very quickly, Andrew Cooper, Jay Aiba, Daniel Cho, Eduardo Bolsonaro, when they are, so that everyone here can attend.
Yeah, so CPAC Australia is on the first weekend in October. That's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's in Sydney. It's a beautiful time of year. At that time of year, the harbour looks gorgeous. The sun will be out. There'll be lots of g'day mates when you arrive. Come on down.
日本では今年は、オリンピックがあります、東京で。
So this year, Japan is going to have a Tokyo Olympic in Tokyo.
その後を予定しています。8月の29、30です。
So we are planning to have Japanese CPAC right after the Tokyo Olympic. It's going to be August 29th and 30th. the end of August.
しかし
However,
しかし
however,
皆さん心配のコロナウイルスがもし解決できなかったら10月ぐらいになるかもしれません。すぐその時はお知らせします。
so as you all concerned aware, if this coronavirus problem is solved, we have to postpone until the time of October, sometime in October. So we are going to keep you updated.
期待してください。
So please stay
Don't worry,
tuned.
Jay. We're all going to solve it. Don't worry.
Thank you.
We're going to have the Olympics.
Thank
It's all
you.
gonna-
Thank you.
CPAC
Yeah.
Last year, it was in October. This year, we haven't fixed the date yet, but we were hoping to have it sometime around October or November. But if you all want to attend, it has to be after November because we want to see the second term of the President Donald Trump. Right? So it's going to be sometime after. Say December. You're all invited.
Yeah, in Brazil too, it will be after the re-election of President Trump. it'll be probably in the end of November or in the beginning of December. We don't have a date yet too. But everybody who is against gun control, everybody who is pro-life, pro-God are much more than invited. And in Brazil, you have a lot of nature everywhere. Even in Brasilia, in our capital, all around you have waterfalls. So we are more than invited to go there and know a little bit more about what is going on in Brazil.
One of the themes of CPAC has been that freedom is worth fighting for, and that America versus socialism is the fight that's before us right now. And we see that our international friends are confronted with the same type of battle. But just as the left pushes harder, the fight for freedom becomes more engaged. The forces of conservatism around the world are growing. And thanks to Matt Schlapp and Dan Schneider in particular, but to a host of others at ACU, the CPAC International is growing. And so today, we are really proud to make a special announcement of yet another opportunity for freedom fighters around the world. And we are welcoming a special guest to make that announcement, Mikolos Santos.
Hi. Hi, Edward. Thank you very much for this invitation. I can be here just a few hours before your great President Donald Trump will speak here. Thank you very much for the invitation once again, Matt, Charlie, and of course, Dan. Dear fellow conservatives, yes, sometimes I feel as well that there is this global liberal tide, and it's so all-pervading, so aggressive, that it is unbeatable. But I can assure you that there is a national conservative revival all across Europe. There are forces, not only political parties, but movements, organizations like mine from Hungary, trying to resist this leftist socialist agenda. And although, of course, I know that my country, Hungary, is a medium-sized country, it is in the heart of Europe, and it's also in the heart of the European conservative renewal. The Hungarian Christian conservatives are among the freedom fighters. Of course, with the leadership of our Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, and of course thank you very much. And of course, only brave and courageous people can do big things, as like the founding fathers established your great country. Because here, on the other side of the Atlantic, here at CPAC, I also feel a 21st century renaissance. Renaissance of the Republican conservative right. And when I speak about revival and renaissance, I do not speak only about institutionalized politics. I do not speak only about bilateral relations between official governments. But I do speak here about some kind of spiritual, intellectual renewal that journalists, thinkers, analysts, and of course politicians are trying to find the sometimes different approaches towards pertaining to the very same challenge. Because I think we, American, European, Hungarian conservatives, we share not only the same challenges, but we also share the same values. We do love our country. We do know that sovereignty and national security is important. As a few days ago, Vice President Mike Pence put it, national security starts with border protection, and I add that it continues with the protection of family, protection of marriage, protection of children, protection of unborn.
Thank you. And please join me in thanking Matt Schlapp, Andrew Cooper, Jay Aiba, Daniel Cho, Eduardo Bolsonaro, and our friend Nicolas Santos. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What about